Good evening, and welcome to another edition of African Americans Ain't Africans, the talk show that proves without a shadow of a doubt that the so called African American didn't find his way to America in the trunk of a ship. I'm your host, the Indigenous SWAT. Tonight, we're back on mental health because the mental health problems that are going on in our community are not people who would normally be designated as mental health patients. These are politicians, ministers, parents, everybody who's living under this white supremacist, whatever you want to call this. So today we're going to take a look at it from our point of view, like we always do. But tonight we have a special guest with us. We have Rupert McClendon. He's here with us today, and he's going to give us his take on the introduction to mental health, or just mental health in general. So without any further ado, I'm going to shut up and let them hit it. And here you go, Infuse Virgo.
Thank you, Carrie. How are you doing tonight?
I'm well.
Well, that's good. And how are you doing, Rupert?
I'm well as also. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Before we get started, I want Rupert to kind of tell a little bit about his history and how he works with youth, I believe, in regards to dealing with some of the issues that our youth are facing in the community, in the education system, and basically in society in general. And then after we do that, we're going to go into the different learning styles that people learn in so we can kind of get a better understanding of how this system, this educational system, is failing our children because they're not allocating them properly and teaching them properly. And that's what happens when you rely on other people to teach your children. But I'm going to shut up to Rupert. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
No problem. I appreciate you guys. Hello to everybody out there. My name is Rupert Earl McClendon. I reside now in Sacramento, California, by way of the Bay Area, out of Hunters Point, San Francisco. And my family on both sides, be it from Texas and Louisiana, made their way to Hunters Point. I grew up there in an impoverished neighborhood, as a lot of people I know did as well. But I've seen everything that you can describe in our mental condition today. I've seen it all come about throughout my years. And then I also did my study and research, whether it be through regular education or just traveling this world, to find out what was it like and what was the mental health scope amongst my people prior to all this noise. And what I do now to speed it up, since I finished playing basketball and traveling the world and everything, and I raised my son here, I'm very detailed, and I also work in the educational system here in the San Joaquin Unified School District. And I particularly work in adult special education. So what I have developed to be my expertise just by being around and being in the know of it. I'm able to apply everything that I've learned in life, everything that I know about us being indigenous people, and all the lost knowledge that we are trying to seek, and the things that we have found out to be, all play a key role in what we see is the increasing in development of the mental health issues in our children, be it mental disabilities or even physical disabilities that are coming out of birth. And we can speak about it in all dynamics. I believe with with you guys, I believe we're going to touch on things and really get people to understand on another level how we can put our articulation together.
Okay, cool. Well, I thank you for being on the show. This should be very interesting. Now, I have a question for you. Would you
Yes.
say, are you dealing more so with youth or not youth, but young adults, or are you dealing with adults in every age range?
I have done. That's a good question. I've dealt with adults in every age range, and what crept me to understand that that was kind of my calling to dab into this part of education is
Hmm.
because when times were rough in the United States, I left. I had my own cab business, and I used to make money picking up people with certain disabilities and taking them to programs. But I built a rapport because I was one of the only kind of genuine people. I would get out, take them into the class. I would do things I didn't have to do amongst that, and I would meet people. And then when business went sour, I got right into the programs with more so elders and adults into their mental health programs dealing with cerebral palsy, things like that. And then I said, you know what? let me go on and get back into education, back into the school district for stability. And what I found is myself, they needed me to go into adult mental health, which they have a facility in Sacramento that gives students, I say students because I don't want to call them kids, they adults, but once they graduate within their mental health programs at their high school, the district gives them 4 more years. Okay. And it's enticing to our people out there, because that means it's money, for poor households and everything. And they kind of throw their kid. I see where they're throwing. I can, and we'll touch on it. But I'm at a point now, and I've been here for 7 years in the district, and I see where it's money in it. I see exactly how everything ties into it.
So basically, they're utilizing the lack of their education system in these people to make a profit.
Oh, to make the profit, and the profit.
Okay, you're freezing up.
So while we're waiting for him to unfreeze, why don't we go ahead and get into the learning styles?
Okay. All right. Well, once we get Rupert, you back?
Oh yes, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Okay. It's showing my signal is strong too. I'm sorry.
Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. We're gonna talk about the learning styles, because I want to get through this as well as Carrie wants to kind of get through it, so we can move on to our next level. And I also want your input on this. So we're going to start with learning styles. I'll go through them and explain what they are. If you have anything that you want to throw in there, I greatly appreciate it, and we can go from there. But we'll start off with this. And the reason why I'm bringing up learning styles is that in the educational system, the students are taught one way. Very monolithic, very sit down, listen, write, take notes. Don't, if you have a question, great, but don't ask too many questions type of learning style.
Oh, yeah.
That doesn't work for our children. Because if you notice, when you show our children how to do something, or when you show anyone how to do something, and they can hear, see, touch it, we tend to learn better. So I've broken them down. We're going to go ahead and start. There's a visual learner, and I guess it's called a spatial learner. Visual learners are those who prefer learning by observing things. Then you have an auditory learner, which is the oral learner. You have the verbal, which is linguistic, which they learn by listening and speaking. You have physical, which I call kinetic, and then you have logical, which is more of a mathematical learner, somebody who's really good with numbers. You have a social learner, which is interpersonal, who likes to be around a lot of people and does well in groups. And you have a solitary learner, which is a person who tends to do things better by themselves. So that's the learning styles we're going to talk about today. Did you have anything, Rupert?
We can talk about it. Oh, I'm sure I have plenty on this subject. We got it.
Okay. Carrie, go ahead if you want to move the slide, since you got that.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so the first learning style I'm going to mention is going to be the physical or the kinetic learner, which is a person who prefers to be moving. Sitting in one place for too long, such as a lecture setting, can be kind of a nightmare, because they would prefer to be doing hands-on work. This, I believe, is where they confuse children who have ADHD, because you have children who like to move around. Okay, you guys ever heard like a Montessori school? Montessori schools are schools that embrace all these learning styles. And if we embrace these learning styles from the beginning, when our children were placed into the school system, we would have a higher percentage of graduates and people going on to do trade schools or whatever they decide to do.
That's a fact.
Then we have the visual learner. The visual learner is someone who learns best through visual means. They prefer to look at things and absorb information rather than listening to it or using their hands. Then these are the characteristics of a visual learner, and I gotta pull my screen up a little bit so I can see that. Okay, the characteristics of a visual learner: they like to look around and examine situation. They may stare when angry and beam when happy. Facial expressions are a good indicator of emotions in the visual learner. They think in pictures and detail and have vivid imaginations. They think basically they're just very vibrant, active people. When extensive listening is required, they may require it to be quiet because they become impatient. They might be neat in appearance. They may dress in the same manner all the time. They may have a ritual that they perform on a daily basis, but basically they like to be entertained. They like moving. They're really good with colors and just being able to express themselves in a visual manner. Artists like Picasso and I believe Mozart were visual learners.
Yeah.
But can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So in visual learners,
Mm-hmm.
if that's how they learn, and we learn, and we know 90% of us, we don't have a life if we don't have a TV. Visual learners, isn't that how most of us learn? Because we see the TV and we take everything off of that.
Yeah.
Isn't that the primary way in which we learn?
Yes.
Yes.
It's the primary way. Yeah.
It is. And that device is a control device. You pointed out and you asked the question, isn't that the primary way? And it is visual. So it has captured most of our visual learners and our artists in another way to control that mindset. But I've also experienced how to visually learn in an old-fashioned way, and I've seen how it works. So that's why you heard me say the word fact when you finish speaking of the physical, what the physical one is. But when it comes to the visuals and you applying that with the television, exact. But I've seen the other way that we can learn visually that applies to us and gets more production.
I mean,
Can you give us an example of that?
Yes, I can. I will give you an example. Brother Kerry, when I first ran into you, I remember you speaking and talking about the different martial art forms that we learned, that come from us. I studied, and what got me to thrive in education is when I was in the city of San Francisco, and I came out of a school called a children's center called Dr. Charles Drew. They were doing some unique things coming out of the late 70s and the 80s. They actually almost got in trouble with the school district in San Francisco because they said, we're going to take a children's center, not a public school, and our preschool unit, we're going to switch it, and we're going to create our own curriculum. They start to teach us Spanish, English, and Swahili. We had martial arts. We had different things like that. Well, by the time we turned 4, our whole class was reading at a 5th grade level at 4 years old. The elementary schools started to recruit us, and they were recruiting us to come to their school. And that was the first time us not going to the school in the neighborhood housing projects. Now, when I got to that school, they seen our visual learning capabilities. So what they did is they took 12 of us boys, and the first teacher, his name is Bira. He was coming from Bahia, Brazil, and he introduced us to capoeira. And when we visually got hold of that, through us visually learning capoeira, he could have taught us we would have been sitting there to learn calculus and everything. I still do it to this day, and I can and I'm a better teacher because of seeing how he taught us. And when I was introduced to him, it was a blessing, is because he was visually taught. But if you look up Maestro Accordion on YouTube or anything, you will see he has no age. He's probably in his 90s. He can still flip. He still teaches, and he's a visual teacher. He shows you, and you can ingest anything. It's an old-fashioned way that was taught to him by people that come out there, and it goes back and back and back. But if you look at his classrooms and the way he can make adults and children pay attention and sit Indian style in any type of weather, outside or inside, you will understand it's a problem with the way our kids are taught.
Oh, okay. Nicole?
Okay, so basically with visual learners, I'll go into like some of the tools that people can use. And what you said is very true, because you got to think about it like this. If you look at it from the standpoint, like you take your baby, your child outside and you show them how to plant seeds. you really aren't giving them a step by step on how to do it, like, like a monolithic fashion. You're actually digging and you're showing them how to do it. You're putting the seed in the dirt. You're explaining to them how to water it, how it's going to start to grow. And then when the vegetables start to grow, you teach them how to pick the green beans, like, my grandma did, and how to shuck them and how to, all that. So that's a visual learning style too. And that's how we learned a lot of how to man the land, because there was no instruction manual. I mean, there just wasn't. So also the tools for visual learners are going to be like using mind pictures or mind maps, taking notes, using clues for words to recall things, like, words that are associated with whatever subject you're talking about, using colored highlighters, using maps, watching audio visuals, like watching like educational shows, photographs, flashcards, watching TV is on there. And when we say watching TV, we're talking about like educational programming, not like Days of Our Lives or anything like that, even though people do learn things from there as well, but we're not discussing that part. So those are some of the things for a visual learner. You'll notice if your child is more of a visual learner by the fact that they pay attention when you're talking, or they want to know what you're making in the bowl. You'll start to notice, if you haven't already noticed, that your child learns that way. Carrie, did you have anything to add to that at all? Or any questions? Okay.
No.
And okay, we can go to the next one. Yeah. We did that one. It's the characteristics of an auditory learner.
Tools for visual learners.
Yeah, I just talked about that one. Okay. Characteristics for auditory learner. Okay. So an auditory learner basically learns by listening, and also talking. So they like to talk a lot about what they do, about the pros and cons of the situation. They have a little bit of logic applied to their learning ability. They tend to indicate emotion through their tone, their pitch, their volume. You can tell when a person is more of an auditory learner because they get excited about certain things. And if they don't like something, you can tell by the way their voice is projected and also their body language. They enjoy reading out loud. They like narratives, plays, just basically public speaking. A lot of people who are auditory learners are public speakers. Did you have anything for me at all there, Rupert?
That's exactly correct. As you're going into them, what I notice about each and every different type of learning that you've broken down that would probably help us. It just lets us know. It lets me know that everything has a class. The way that we see our children learn in these categories, it lets you know what they should be going into.
Right. These, I'll go into the characteristics too. Carrie, did you have any questions at all before I go further?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So the characteristics and tools for the auditory learner tend to be that they like to talk. Sometimes people who are auditory learners talk to themselves. They get distracted easily. They prefer spoken direction over written direction. So they like for you to tell them what to do. So basically, they're still kind of a visual learner there too. They can read whispering lip movements. They remember names, like to sing, don't like a lot of noise when they're trying to concentrate. They tend to be extroverted. They like listening, prefer lecture and discussion, prefer verbal praise from teachers. They like to record the lectures versus taking notes. They use rhymes to help memorize, like with nursery rhymes that we would often teach our children. Like to read out loud. They listen intently and carefully, say words in syllables, so they pronounce the whole word. That was funny, you guys, if you saw that, what was the name of that Boondocks episode when they were talking about how people talk. But anyway, they also talk about illustrations and diagrams and text. And they like to learn new processes, but they like to more so listen versus being, an active written, taking notes type of thing, or, participating. They like to be more of the speaking, listening, the dialogue building type of situation for these learners. And I basically went into what verbal learning is. Let me pull this up real quick here. Verbal learning is linguistic intelligence. It's better known as verbal intelligence. This is where individuals respond best through auditory methods of teaching. Essentially, this is verbal learning. When a student will learn most effectively from listening to people and taking in information, it means an individual has the ability to solve complex problems, come to conclusions, and learn overall by using the tone of someone's language. I'm not going to go through all of this, you guys, but basically you can read it if you'd like. Music, they tend to be into like Shakespeare or Nikki Giovanni, for example. Poetry, they like fiction. Linguistic learners like complex things. They tend to always want to break it down so that way they understand verbally. And if you, either one of you gentlemen have anything there that you want to add to that?
Yeah, those are the articulators.
Yes. Then you have Then you have the physical learner. The physical learner is someone who likes to get their hands dirty. People, you know how you have those little kids that like to finger paint and play with the Play-Doh and stuff like that? Those are physical learners. Physical learners are those people who use like an Acubus for math, or like to draw, or like to build or design furniture, or like to do pottery. Physical learners like to get their hands involved, like to play sports. Instead of sitting, they want to be doing. So we have a lot of children that have all these characteristics, but also have that physical attribute. That's why we have so many great athletes within our culture. We produce so many great people who have invented things because they're more of a physical learner and apply that to the method that they do things.
Yes.
All right.
Exactly.
And then thank you. Then you have like the characteristics of the physical learner. They tend to like to move. They like to do movement like yoga, exercising, gardening, after school activities, drawing, modeling, sculpting. Like I said before, they tend to work with their hands. And you'll notice a physical learner because a physical learner is one of those people who talks with their hands all the time. So you'll notice those behaviors maybe in yourself or in your children, your grandbabies, nieces, nephews, other family members, other people in our culture. Then we have the logical mathematic learning style. Now, if you use a logical style, you are using your brain for logical and mathematical reasons. So you're really good with numbers. Accountants, people who prepare your taxes, scientists, doctors, nurses, really good with calculations, physics, quantum physics, things like that. Those tend to be more of the logical mathematical learning styles that people embrace. And that's basically being able to be really good with numbers. I know quite a few people that are like that. Rupert, Carrie, anything?
I know.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
When you say mathematicians,
Uh-huh.
people learn like that. Where does this type of learning come in before you get to the mathematicians, the teachers, the bankers, whatever? How does this play in, or how does this help before you get to those, later in life?
Okay. Before you get to more, you saying before you get to more complex stuff like the algebra and stuff, how do they come into the logical style of learning?
Yes.
Okay. I would say as an indigenous child, naturally, just thinking back, I would come into a logical style of learning by what I visually see in life. So you would take some of the aspects of the visual learning and things like that. But if you come into things where you're amongst some elderly people that have to think in logical ways and things, and they apply this, that would be your introduction. And then when you get to a broader sense of education to where it is schooling, you would more so see that that your style of learning applies to a logical mathematical learning style.
Okay.
Okay. So I would say, and maybe I can simplify this a little bit more. You know
Okay.
how when you're on a farm, I'm always going to go back to gardening because this to me is a perfect example of it. So you're on a farm and you have a grid of land. The logical mathematical application can be used because you got to figure out how many rows you're going to use or going to develop to be able to plant your crop. You also got to figure out how big you're going to go. And so you got to figure out how many plants or seedlings or whatever you're going to plant along a row. So, without knowing that we were being broken down into a learning style, I think that this mathematical thing was applied when it came to gardening, building, creating things that we use like furniture, bowls, clothing, because you had to measure the person. And at that time, I'm sure we didn't have a tape measure we pulled out. So there had to be some way to develop. And I know one thing that my grandma would do was use a string. Like she would measure your pants. She wouldn't use a tape measure. She'd use a string to measure your pants or your leg to see how long you were. Then she would cut the pattern according to that. Also, when it comes to like managing money, not everybody went to school, but they were able to manage their money. Right. So that mathematical learning style was applied early on because you had to be able to figure out how to measure. You had to be able to figure out how to manage your money. You had to be able to figure out how to make your clothing. You had to how to figure out how to cook, because you had to know that, well, a cup of this is going to equal that, and so forth. And then, once this monolithic learning style came into play and these schools got to being developed, they started to break it down and put it more into a numeric sense. So that way it could be understood, but confuse us, because they understood it, because they took it and confused it and mixed everything up again. And they tried to reteach it back to us the way they perceived it. And it doesn't work, because not everybody gets calculus. Not everybody gets physics. Not everybody gets their periodic table. And so I think that if we were to use our indigenous ways of math, the way that it was explained from from the older generations to us, it might be easier for us to understand, because in the forms that they're using it now, it's complicated. And and then they create these new maths, like you got this 2 + 2 + 1, take away 0, add 5 = 4. And you're like, what? Correct. But it's just 2 + 2 = 4. And that's always been that way. So, so I think that the logical learning style, the logical mathematical learning style and applied to us is a little bit different than it is in this new American version of mathematics. And I think that's why a lot of children fail in it, because it's not explained properly.
Oh, you dead on with it. And I love the way that you brought it back to learning that style of learning through more indigenous ways too, and you brought it back to farming. And I thought of that since, because I remember seeing my great grandmother's garden, and you were speaking of the rows and figuring out that I was figuring out why did they create the mound to plant the different rows to plant the mounds, and then I had to go logically figure that out myself, and then my thought process led me to asking questions and asking them what they did it for, and learning like, oh, that is correct, and that led that intrigued me in that style of education. So you're definitely right. You all the way on.
Okay, so Carrie, you got anything? Carrie, where'd he go?
I'm here. No, you go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So now we're going on to the social learning. And you guys, this is going to lead up to something, because this is all based with the way they diagnose our children for having learning disabilities, because I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of why we're going into this, if you're getting kind of lost on where we're going. Then we have like the social learner. The social learners are typically strong in both verbal and nonverbal communication. They are often people who listen well and give advice, like your social workers and your psychologists and things like that. A social learner enjoys working and learning with other people by pairing up to work on projects and forming a study group. So these tend to be your group learners. Like when you have a group project, these people tend to shine in those areas. The characteristics of a social learner are they typically prefer learning in groups, like I mentioned, and they also like to tend to stay around after class, or stay around after church, or stay around after a social event, basketball, whatever, and ask questions. They also are, tend to be that way with the sports, and tend to be like a lot of the popular children, like, the kids that are popular in school tend to be the social learners.
I have a question.
Yes.
This school thing that so much of our energy is used for, has it been worth it? How has that been for us as far as us as a growth of people? Has it helped us or has it hurt us?
It has hindered us.
I agree.
It has hindered us. I'm working in it, and I think
He froze up again.
Yeah, because the reason I ask is because a lot of time, I hear all of this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and with this, especially in situations like we're living today,
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's just doing what they're told to do, and people with information that got the information, they're ignored.
Mm-hmm.
yes.
So I'm just wondering, when we say a school to prison pipeline,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, how is this really helping us? I mean, has education, have we gotten all out of education that we could get, or are we being educated wrong on the wrong subjects? Or are we being educated in somebody else's culture and it's
Yes.
just messing us up because it's not our culture? How does that work?
Can I go something recent, and then we can go back into how it doesn't work? We just went into Christmas break. I have a student that's 19-year-old, an indigenous male. His mother passed away when he was 2. He is in the special education system. He is in this system. He is new to the school where I'm at. The staff members pulled me out of my class and all the other students and brought me into the office and asked, Rupert, could you please work with this student? I believe that you have something out of your spirit and soul that would help him start to trust us. And they said it just like so. I met the young man. I brought him over, and when I took him out of the class, he would not speak. As soon as I got him into the gymnasium and he knew that we were by ourselves, the first thing he's saying, now you got to understand, he has been through the whole special education system and it did not work for him. And now he has his last 4 years and they're saying he don't speak. Soon as he entered the door, this was just last Thursday. Mr. Rupert, look, I already know all this shit. This is he's just going. And I stopped him. And I said, look, young man, I let him know. And I'm not a person that's conceited or not. I said, I believe I can help you out and get to the level you want to be. I said, all you got to do is just listen to me while I'm here and use your energy not to worry about whatever they're trying to teach you that you already know. I'm going to show you how to apply your skill and your talent to get to the next level and away from this educational system. He started crying. But it's everything we're speaking about. I'm at a point in working with this to where I know that eventually I have to do my own thing and take the expertise that I've learned and go against the grain and create a new curriculum, whether I go to jail for it, but or else we're not going to get anywhere learning this style and in this culture.
Okay. I agree. I agree. I think, just to add to it to Rupert and Carrie, is I think that this learning system has completely failed us. Completely failed us. And
Yes.
I say that because of the fact that I have 2 sons and a daughter that are incarcerated. And with that being said, it's like, how can you have some children that can learn, that get looked at like, oh yeah, these, they're great students, let's push them to the next level, they understand the monolithic learning system. Then you have those children who can't grasp it because they don't learn by sitting in front of a teacher who's telling you, okay, this is the answer, this is how you do this problem, this is how you do this problem, this is how you do this problem, okay, now write it down, now that your homework is pages 15 through 20. And it without the interaction, without being able to be shown how that they got that answer, how that math problem is really the result, the result is that answer, they really can't grasp it. So when they can't grasp it, and you don't want to, and your brain goes, no, I don't want to learn that shit. So your brain goes, I don't want to learn shit. So now you turn around and you start looking at your friend who's more interesting than what the math problem is, because you don't understand it. So it's like, instead of trying to grasp why it is, why don't, how is it that we can get you to be more involved in this math problem? It's, well, you know what, I think we need to have the child psychologist look at you and find out what's wrong with you. Then they put the child in an IEP. Then they take the child from around his peers and they put them and label them in a special education system. So
Yes.
I don't feel that this learning system, and me having went through it and having put my children through it and not really, having the knowledge that I have now, I don't feel that it's a positive thing for us. I don't think that we should be in a rush to go, oh, well, you know what, things are back to normal, let's put our kids back in school. I think that a lot of us should try to figure out a route to go where we can start incorporating teachers that look like us.
Correct.
Into teaching our children. We need to look into opening up schools with teachers that look and sound like us. And then another thing too is that, parents, get up off your ass and come into class and help teach your kids. Because, especially if you're not working and doing all that stuff like that, and you're at home, you can be helping your child in school. If that's what you're gonna do. If you're not gonna homeschool your child and you want to put your child in a school, we need to develop the bring back our customs, our culture, our history, instead of having a child go to school and say, well, you were an indentured servant for 400 years. And no, that's not where our history began at all. And by putting our children into the hands of this monolithic school system, that not only is it putting them up for being part of that ADHD pipeline to prison, in my opinion, it's also putting them up for other things, because they need to be vaccinated and they need to know their blood type. They need to know what they eat. And then they're feeding them foods that are full of chemicals and that are not good for them. So it's kind of an oxymoron, in my opinion, to actually put your child in school now. If I was raising children, if I had young children and I was going into the process, they would definitely be homeschooled. And I'd have to develop something in my community where I would be able to work with other parents and other teachers that look like us, that understand who we are, and we would have to work with the kids that way. So
Truth Seeker says they force our children to be vaccinated before going back to school. They miseducate our children. We learn all European traditions. That's 100% right. Mm-hmm. So this is what I'm saying. This is what I don't get about us. We've been in this school system, let's say 100 years. Mm-hmm. And you see now some of the dumbest people you ever seen in your life.
Wow.
See, yeah. I mean, what other way? I know a lot of people get mad. Dumb.
Straight up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and these are people. Okay, so like the brother was saying, Truth Seeker was saying, we learn all European traditions. So let's if you had a school in the community, mm-hmm. and the whole school was voting for Biden. What is that teaching those children in the school? If this is a black school or whatever, and this is what I don't get. We keep looking at school like it's some saving grace, or it's the holy grail. Oh, if you go to school, you'll be great. And I've seen nothing but disaster.
Yeah.
Could you talk on that?
Yes.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Your floor.
You're looking at school like so, and I say, Brother Kerry, look, what I've seen from looking at preschool, elementary, junior high, high school, going to a private Jesuit university, and then traveling this world, seeing educational systems in China, France, Switzerland, Africa, and then coming back and comparing it to ours. The only way that we can get our people out of this indoctrinated school system is, I agree with what you say, Nicole, exactly. We have to create our own curriculum and things like that. But I've thought about this so much, and I said, the best teachers that I've had culturally that have tapped into me and have got my brain to even find out of what I truly am are teachers who do not have this indoctrinated degree. We don't need to go. We can cut the red tape. If we build schools and we had money and these athletes had money, they make the mistake by looking to hire just degreed American certified degree teachers. We have a lot of qualified people that do not have a certified education through what we're indoctrinated by, and they are great teachers. They are waiting to teach us and bring us back, but we have to break those rules.
Cool.
Oh, you know what? I just saw what Copper Colored Lifestyle said about the teachers being racist.
Yes.
You know what, you guys, when I was in high school, I started high school in Washington State, and I had the privilege, and I'm saying this sarcastically, of going to a all white high school.
Okay.
I was the only Black female, indigenous female there. It was nobody else. It was just me. I was like the chocolate drop in the middle of a big bowl of vanilla ice cream. And when you say racist, racism is not even describe the things that people would say and do to me.
Wow.
And I don't, I don't get, I'll never forget it. But you're 100% correct when you say that the teachers don't like us, because they don't want you to learn. And if you do have some teachers that are we're in the inner city school system that I have ran into that really want to change the school system and understand this logic that this school system is failing the indigenous child and the indigenous family on a whole. But then, we also have to take some accountability for our participation in it as well. I mean,
Yeah.
we went to these schools, and then we're putting our kids in these schools. We're trusting these people who really don't really want us on the planet to teach your children. So it's kind of like it's like the enemy teaching your child. They don't want your child to progress. If your child happens to squeeze through the cracks and be one of those the bright monolithic learners, they adore you, then they figure out something else to do with you.
That's right. And to touch on who was Copper Colored, my brother, and the question you just dwelled on, the statement you just dwelled on, it brought it to my attention to get this out here so it's stapled down and it's documented in history. What you were speaking on, Nicole, was the distance learning program and why it probably would be the best choice not to bring our kids back into that environment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in there. And I've never been able to express this, but we have to get this out there. Yes, the racism will apply more here, because the thing that our people are not thinking about when it comes to distance learning, and you guys have to understand this. If your child is already being discriminated against in a racial manner in this school, how do you think bringing them into distance learning through the computer is going to prevent that? It's going to increase it, because what you have now and what is skipping over everybody's head is the fact that what teachers can do now is, since the child is not in physical contact with the teacher, I cannot see my class. I cannot come to school on the Monday, get assigned homework, and see who turns it in the next day. I cannot vouch for myself by seeing that I did a report, turned it in, and this person, I can see that they didn't do as much as me and they got a better grade. I can't call that out anymore. So what does that do? A teacher now has the discretion to take a Black child, an indigenous child, and say something with him with all these students on the screen, and they have the ability to simply cut class, speak with one student, and let them know, look, you don't have to do 10 pages. You can do 3 pages. Who's going to be accountable to make sure that's true? Nobody can see each other's work.
Right.
So that teacher can discriminate. She can have a Zoom conference and tell them, look, I'm going to give you an A automatically. She can do these things, and there is no way you can catch it. Your kid can do all the curriculum in the class, and she can give them a D and say, look, everybody's was better than yours, and you have no way to prove that everybody did anything.
There was just a situation like that that was I saw on Instagram or something like that and in the news where a child was doing their homework or was on class, and they had a toy gun, and the teacher called the police on the child who had a toy gun and had the police go to the house, and they arrested the child for having a toy gun.
That's correct. So anything can take your child out the game now, even if your teacher says a curriculum and they say it's a 15-page report, your child may do 15 pages. They may get a C on it, but you don't know if everybody turned it in. Somebody who may have never turned it in, she can just give them an A. You have no way to prove it.
Right. So people, well, that's the same thing what they're doing now, like with the college thing, where the rich people were paying the schools for their kids to go to school when they're dumb as hell, and now they got caught up in it, so now they got to do a little 3-month time in prison. Yep. So it's the same concept. They always find a loophole to be able to to con your kids out of what's rightful. That's why if we're going to do that type of learning system, we need to develop our own.
Correct.
We need to develop
It need to be applied skills, because I told some youngsters here 3 years ago in South Sacramento, you can go out there and you can go see it close to the poorest neighborhoods, but when you see development houses build up, you will see Latinos out there and Mexican guys, and it will be 14, 15-year-old Mexican kids building that house up, getting money, but they don't speak English. They probably don't speak their language as fluent in the best. They probably don't read well, write well, but wherever they came from, they were taught skills and they learned visually how to build a house up off the ground, and that applies now. They can make it. It was kids down the street their age going to school trying to make A's, broke can't apply none of that with no skill for them. They're wasting their time. They're wasting it. It needs to be skills taught that they can apply. We need to be teaching our kids how, if they're good and their field goes into agriculture, they need to be learning how to do it. And then by 12 years old, they need to be applying it. They need to be building. They need to be selling goods. They need to be produced. If we're not doing it this way, we're going to always be behind the ball. So that means our teachers that we need to expedite this learning and get us back on track. We can't rely on just our Black teachers that are certificated. We got to go to the ones that have the skill.
Yeah, like the guy Spaceman, a perfect, awesome teacher.
Yeah.
Carrie, I mean, he would be an awesome teacher, because of the fact of his knowledge that he knows naturally. Yeah. And it's like, all these other subjects are kind of forced upon us versus us learning them because those are things that we really need to know. We don't know what we need to know. I mean, when was the last time you used algebra when you went to the store to pay for something?
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. They don't teach us anything, but that's what I'm saying. Right. And I agree with what you guys are saying, and the chat room, because they're saying they push low self-esteem on us, and it's like we never figure it out. We just always confused, and I didn't know. Hell me. We always in that mindset. Yeah, we don't know nothing. And these are the ministers, the professors. None of these shines know nothing.
No.
And we pretend, because many Negroes do this, we pretend like, oh, they're great, oh, they're wonderful. And we the stupidest people you've ever seen.
Correct. I had a statement, Kerry, where I stated, I said, what the white people here deem to be intelligent, what they call intelligent, and what they say is, and when they deem you to be intelligent, is simply just what they have overthought. They're just overthinking. What they think intelligence is just overthinking the subject. You have something that's laid out, simple, works for you, and then they take it away, reteach it to you, and then add something on it to complicate it. And all they did was take something and overthought it. And so they deem overthinking something as intelligence. It's like them inventing a new way to rock a baby in the crib, and then that crib falls over and kills the baby when you know that you have something that's probably wooden that does that all day. You don't need no device on it. They overshoot it.
Okay. So do we have anything else on this, you guys, on the solitary or the learning style, what we're talking about?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So now we're going to the solitary learner.
They
and
choose to think that that's intelligence.
Right. Okay. The solitary learning style is basically a person who likes to do things on their own. They prefer to basically do the assignments by themselves. They prefer to do the activity by themselves. That's basically what a solitary learner is. So you have those moments when you're reading by yourself. That's a solitary learning. So that's how that can be applied. Did either one of you have anything regarding that?
With solitary learning?
Mm-hmm.
I believe so. I mean, I find myself, that is what I'm doing now in these times. I'm doing more of that.
Mm-hmm.
I am. It's forced me to go back to that style of learning, just applying to myself. I noticed that when it comes to my son, because of the educational system that he has been in for the last 15 years, that style of learning is hard for them to capture,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I also think that that there are a lot of children that like to go off and do things by themselves, that like to color and so forth and so on. But like now, with the way society is, you really can't let your children go outside off by themselves because they like to snatch them up. So the societal structure has kind of has been stifling the solitary learner, because little kids really can't go off and play by themselves now, or go dig in the dirt by themselves, because they might dig into something toxic or whatever. So I think our environment has kind of stifled this type of learning style, because of the things that are going on in the world, where they utilize our children in more ways than just giving them a bad education.
Yes. Yes.
So with learning styles, so the reason why I bought up the learning styles is so that way everybody can kind of grasp that that we all learn differently, and that this is known. It is a known thing that we learn differently than our counterparts. And they've broken it down into, once again, a science, like they do when it pertains to everything about us. So going into that, I looked at the ADHD and the school to prison pipeline. Now, in my opinion, like I read back somewhere that someone said they were labeled as having ADHD. I mean, as an adult having ADHD, I think that ADHD is just a combination of all these supposed learning styles that are ways of learning, and it's all combined into one. So you kind of seem like you're sporadic and everywhere. And then they give you Ritalin to make you sit down and go, okay, now I'm going to be a good person and just be quiet and just sit here and listen. I think that ADHD is something that needs to be looked at more, but it also ties into the school to prison pipeline, because the same children that are labeled for having ADHD most of the time are the ones who are constantly in the principal's office. They're the ones who are constantly being reprimanded by the teacher. They're the ones who are constantly, I sit down, you're in timeout, calling the parents. Because I swear I've gotten so many calls from school about my son now, and and now I can see exactly how this applies. When you have a peace officer, a police officer in the school, and instead of being able to teach the child how to mediate an issue or how to work through issues, because you're going to have personal conflicts no matter where you go. People are going to clash. But instead of teaching children how to resolve problems without fighting without shooting, without stabbing, without, cussing each other out and all the other things that happen amongst high school age and younger children. Instead of teaching them good ways to resolve conflict, we've just been acclimated to having a police officer in school. So whenever there's a problem, the teacher doesn't want to feel like being bothered with it, and neither does the principal or any of the people that are in this hierarchy of the school system. They go, oh, well, let's turn you over to the officer, and they start giving your child tickets, and they start reprimanding your child, and then you get the note home. And most of the time when the child comes home and the child says, hey, I got in trouble at school, you're like, what did you do? We don't listen to what the child says. Like, this is what happened. First of all, we believe, for some reason, we'll believe the so-called officials before we believe our child. So now your child is upset, mad because they told you what happened. You didn't take their side. They continue to have these behavioral issues supposedly in school. The peace officer gets involved. It continues on and on and on and on. And then you end up getting out of school. You don't graduate. Say you drop out. So you can't get a job because you need this piece of paper to say that you can work at McDonald's now, and can't get a job. So what do you turn to? Other things. Other things lead to other things, and you end up with a criminal background. And this is how that school to prison pipeline is started. Now, I put a lot of information on here. We basically all know the story, so I really don't feel like I should have to read and go through all this, because we've all been affected by this in some form or fashion.
Yes.
Go ahead, if you guys. I know I'm rambling on and on, Carrie.
No, you're not. I'm agreeing. I said yes, we have, and I'm just saying. I'm saying shout out to the chat room. This is my first time doing it.
So I think. Hold on, I'm going to read this comment. Yeah, I agree with that. Mr. Bell. I do agree with that. Carrie, did you have anything at all?
So attention deficit, what is it? ADHD is attention deficit.
Hyperactive disorder.
I mean, so I think when they come up with these labels and they're putting these labels on us, as usual, we don't think about it. We just whatever they say, we be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And ADHD is not an attention deficit. The shit is boring.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Classes are fucking boring. And you're not teaching the kids, ain't getting no shit from that. Correct. And then you label and the parents agree with them. That's what I'm saying, man. All this shit, we're in a position now. We don't have nobody to blame. We can't blame nothing, because we get into this shit and push it on our children.
Yes, we do.
And it didn't work on you.
I watch them.
Right.
I'm there watching the parents, and the thing I noticed, Gary, is a lot of the parents that come in there with our children at the school where I'm at, I'm just giving it to it raw. They come in there and when they giving their children away to the game like that, they be smiles and giggles. When they open that door and they see me, they can't look me in the eye. They don't expect me to be there.
Right.
I see them, I'm like, oh, y'all playing. Oh, this is a check. And they selling them off. So we have to accept our accountability. But I am there, and I could speak on it, and I'm glad y'all let me speak on this platform, is because I've seen the faces. I've seen them they're like, oh, they're doing it behind our back. So we don't know who to hold accountable. I know now. I see the ones, that are just edging it on. In the business in special education for ours with the school to prison pipeline is growing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they build every time the new fourth grade class started in the old structure, they were building a new prison. So yes. They know that those kids in that fourth grade class are going to be, most of them are going to end up in prison or dead. They have already calculated that out. So for our behaviors to be that acclimated to a system that's not working for us, we really need to kind of step back and look at it and start our own. Honestly, we have enough money. If it's about money, we have enough money in our culture, in our society, in our collective to start a whole new society. We have enough money. More than enough. I mean, when you spend $76 trillion on everything else and none of it goes back into your community, it's time to step back and look at what you're buying. You don't need the Nikes. You don't need, I'm sorry, ladies, you don't need the hair. You don't need the nails. You don't need the eyelashes. We need to take our money and invest it in forms of education for our children, with people who look like us and who have skills that they can teach us. I mean, we have auto mechanics. We could have people teaching children auto mechanics, boys, girls. If you want to learn. But we need to develop our own learning system, because all of these things that are going on right now are affecting our children. I know they've affected mine. And it's like, and I the same thing I know now, I could have learned then, but I didn't, because I was acclimated into this system and this structure. And I'll be the first to say it. And now I see it. And I don't know if anybody else has little children out there, but it is a terrible feeling to watch the sheriffs take your child after they convict him and take him while he's crying and looking at you, and take him and put him in a prison, and there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
And no matter who you reach out to, no matter how you try to get help, no matter what organization you go to, there's always a fucking stipulation as to why. And your own people will not stand behind you. And it was your hand that put your child there. Because if you had known if I had known what I know now, it would have never happened. So my doing these shows, and you guys, I know I'm going a little off subject, my doing these shows is because of that. Yeah. If I can help save future children, because if I can help to prevent this, if I can help, we can help to organize things, because I don't care about ego. I don't care if you don't like me. I don't care if you do like me. I don't care about all that. But what I do care about is the fact that we are being genetically annihilated, and we put a lot of this on our own back. We've put a lot of this on our own back by contributing to it, by believing in what they say, by putting in the education system, by going to their colleges, because even though you might think that the HBCUs are Black colleges, they were not started by Black people. They were started by white people, eugenicists to be exact. So, knowing these things now, it just makes me look at like, God damn, I was fucking stupid. And I'm sorry to say it that way, but that's the way that I see it. And so when you have a police officer and a police force that's assigned to your school, they are there to create more slaves. That's Correct. What the prison system is.
Correct.
And they don't learn anything in prison. I mean, if they do, they get paid. My son said 5 cents on a dollar. What is that? And then it's just no. But in other countries, in European countries, the prison system is like this. You go to prison, you get to go to college, you get to learn a trade. So when you get out, you can be a formidable member of society. We don't do that here. We don't do that. We don't do that. We just say, here's a felon, you can't vote. Oh well, so what? Life goes on. And because the life. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
They don't want ours to learn how to produce for themselves. So they're going to do that here. And I've been over to Europe. The first thing that I noticed, growing up in this education, the same way, Nicole, having to learn how to indoctrinate myself, and knowing that I have to step out of this system to see what is it that I need to know before I step back, and so I can break hold of this. And the one thing I noticed my first year in France was they don't have sports in school, and me being an athlete, that was key because I was there playing professional sports. But here, I'm like, they don't even have the same system as us. And I started to see why. I was like, oh, and it's better. I was like, the students they have a skill already that they can apply. And then I would come back for my 2 months back to the States, and you can just compare and contrast, especially with our own. And I can speak to all my elders, and I can ask them at my age and at this generation right now, at their age, what my elders were doing at their age did not have anything to do with being a freshman, sophomore in high school. They had more skill. They had way more skill, and they were able to apply it. you know, and you can see it missing. And you can see that our students are thirsting for it. They're thirsting for a whole new education. And it would stop that. But the prison to pipeline, it just benefits one society, and we're pushing it because we don't want to do that hard work. But I appreciate you on this platform holding yourself totally accountable to a way that I would say, no, you're not stupid. We was just indoctrinated. And you have to be phenomenal to break out of that.
So I think we need to shed the light on the prison to pipeline. We have to understand, because one of the things that we like to do, we like to blame this system, and it's us. It's us. We're the money in here.
Accountability.
We're the money, and somehow we don't get it. Simple shit we don't get. Here, this is how the prison to pipeline started. How many people have heard of a guy named Thurgood Marshall, Supreme Court Justice?
Yes, indeed.
Thurgood Marshall was the judge who did that Brown versus the Education.
Yes.
That got you integrated in school.
Yes.
So don't say nothing about the school being messed up, because you happy this clown got you into that. And then when the dude who played Black Panther plays him, that gets your panties even more wet.
Correct.
So check this out.
Yep.
This is how Negroes are always embarrassed, and they try to talk and act like they're not. Guess who's the CEO of the prison system?
Who?
Thurgood Marshall's grandson.
Oh yeah, I remember you telling us talking about that. Yeah.
I'm gonna research that after we are. I'm gonna look. Wow, I did not know that.
You can do it now. This stuff. This is out there like a YouTube video, and I don't know, why you bringing this? It's us.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
We keep trying to blame past shit on other people, and we're the ones who do it.
Yep.
We send our kids to this stupid shit.
Yep.
And then we try to act like it ain't our fault. You're gonna look like an asshole in a little while when they pay attention to what they doing, y'all. Pay attention to what they doing. And we ain't gonna be able to rely on that. I didn't know. Right. Hell, no, we ain't gonna be able to do that.
Another thing I want to bring up too, Carrie, is that remember we were talking about Ruby Bridges? Remember we were talking about how she was marched to school. Now pay attention to this. What happens? Okay, before they get ready to sacrifice the woman in European Greek culture, what did she wear? She wore white.
Yeah.
Right. So they put Ruby Bridges, the little girl, in white dress, white socks, white bow, white this, and they march her to school. What is that? That's a sacrifice. That right there is a sacrifice. And everybody who was involved in those school sit-ins and those first Black kids in school, in the school, are all part heavily of the so-called civil rights movement in the civil rights administration, and all have their college degrees and part of the fraternities and so forth. If you research like the Arkansas 5, I think it was, Carrie, I think that's what it was. Remember?
Little Rock 9.
Little Rock 9. Yeah, if you research them, all of them, every single one has a college education and something that has to do with something that's acclimated to the monolithic school system and this American school structure, because it was a payoff, and they don't want to tell you that part, but it was a payoff. So us putting our children into school, it was a plan, because along with the studying of our consumerism in 1954, they also figured that in order to keep them slaves, let's make sure that we can educate them too, so they can do what we want them to do.
Correct. They seen that you were becoming undoctrinated until they had to regroup you. Now they knew that there are civilians that had that.
Did we lose them again?
That's what they know. See,
Yeah.
I'm not really worried about what they know. What do we know? And when it comes for us to know something, we never know a goddamn thing.
No, we don't want to hold ourselves accountable. We're the hand that handed all of this over. We're the hand that hands our children over. We're the ones that we push them forward and say, go to school. and like the lady who we had on the show a long time ago when you clicked upon her video, President Trump, please come get these kids and put them back into school because they're getting on my nerves. Remember that? But that's and unfortunately that's so many
Yeah,
of our mindset. That is
yeah, I
so
saw that.
that is so many of our mindset. We can't say we've all okay. We've all done that. We've all wanted to get these goddamn kids out of here. They're getting on my nerves. Instead of saying, okay, you guys, let's go have a water balloon fight outside, or let's go run, or hey, you know what? I got an idea. Let's go to Home Depot and grab some stuff or whatever store in the area and grab some. Let's start a garden or whatever. No, we don't want to be bothered because we want to do our adult things, which don't make any sense. So it's like this is our fault. I mean, and we have to hold ourselves accountable. And I agree with that completely. And I hold myself accountable for the situation. That's why I'm here doing this. And it's time that we all put on our big boy pants and our big girl pants and say, okay, we fucked up. What do we need to do to fix it? And put ego and pride and I don't like you and all that bullshit to the side because we pass that on to our children. So they don't know how to work together. And at one time, to have a clan and to have a tribe, you got to work together. You had to work together. You had to figure it out. Somebody went deer hunting, somebody skinned the deer, somebody cured the meat. There was a process. So we need to go back to those cultural processes of how to do things and how to acclimate them into back into a system that we create, so that way we can have successful children that are going to be proactive in this global market. Because that's the whole point, is that we need to be active in the global market. Because if we're not proactive in the global market, there's nothing that we're going to be able to do but keep on repeating the cycle again. And this cycle has gotten us nowhere. We are so regressed from 1920 something when Black Wall Street existed. We have regressed every year progressively. We have went backwards. It's time for us to stop the backwards and now go back and move forward. And one of those things is taking control of teaching our children the things that they need to learn to be successful in this life.
It's a sacrifice to do that, and that's what I believe they scared to do. I see that fear for us to sacrifice. I see the fear to sacrifice because we need to teach our own. We know what we have to do, but we scared. They primed us. I mean, we in it, and we have shows like this. We trying to speak. I wish it can just dial in and change some minds, but that's why I stated earlier. I said we have to go beyond, and we have to go beyond just looking at what's certificated. We got to hire out what's out there that has the knowledge to get it done right now, because it's that type of time. Everybody else is too scared. And even the ones that have this monolithic education all the way up to the highest degree, they're scared to they're scared to branch off. So they're not going to do it. We gotta trust ourselves and do this.
And another thing is too, do you notice in Chinatown, Chinese kids, in Vegas, there's a whole side of Vegas that's nothing but Chinatown. Chinese schools, Chinese businesses, Chinese restaurants, Chinese clothing store, Chinese attorneys, Chinese bank. How and the same goes for Japan. How is it they were able to bomb a whole part of Japan, and Japan said, okay, all right, I got you, and they come back and they rebuild their cities, and they come over here, and now we're driving Nissans and Datsuns and Toyotas and all that, but we go, oh well, master says we can't rebuild no more, so let's go on, sit down and sacrifice our chilling and just do what we got to do. What happened in the translation of this? I mean, I'm sorry. It's like, I come from my grandmother who moved up north from Mississippi, leaving their land, and moved her mom, and then my mom and all that, and the baby boomers and all that stuff like that. So we know what's caused the issue. We know how we're responsible from generation to generation to now. So now that we are aware of what's going on, what are we going to do about it? Because what can they do to us? What can they do? What else can they do? We have the money. What can they do? Why are we afraid to pull a global Montgomery bus boycott? Why are we afraid to pull our dollars? Is it that serious? I mean, is it really that important that you have the name brand Gucci belt? What is it doing for you?
Yeah, Nicole, it's that serious for those ones, and I see it. It ain't for us, the ones that do, but I would dream that it's more that have that mindset already. And even the ones I see that's tinkering, that know that's what they have to do, that's where I see it too much now. I see that they won't sacrifice that. That's a lot to them. Even the youngsters I see. Is it shallow? It's just the fact that it's been primed and indoctrinated into so much and inbred into our offsprings. And this is what you got now. It's that far deep because we should have started taking them steps to do it on our own, some time ago. So we in a rut now. So to do that, we have to go all the way against the grain. But that fear of stepping off their porch is just, it got them. They'll argue you down so they can just stay on it. Because it attacks their pride. They can hold some accountability, but that pride won't allow them to say that they scared to do it. They scared.
Well, fear better be something that y'all better get over, because we got a bumpy road ahead of us if we don't get over fear. And I'm sorry, it ain't going like that. I don't had enough bump in my life because of things that I did not take the time to research or look into or question. So we really need to get together and come to some type of resolution on what we're going to do going forward and regarding the education of the next generation. I mean, those 18-year-olds and the people that are in college, you got to start with the little kids, the 5-year-olds, the preschoolers and stuff like that, because that is the generation that is not affected. From 5 on, I don't know how we plan to go about it, but we need to go about something. I mean, because this is, it's going to continue, especially if they start mandating you get vaccinated. What then? And then to go back to school. And people are dying to put their kids back into school because they don't want them around the house because they aren't accustomed to having children in the house or whatever. So we got to work through that part. And then we got to work through developing an educational system where children can learn viable trades, because we were tradesmen. We made furniture. We created the car. We created the refrigerator. We created the blood transfusion. We created all these things. So what's the problem? There's no problem. We just need to start. Yeah.
And you can see the fear in doing it on a major level. I think this proves it outright. I've heard a couple people speak on it, but I've seen around, and I don't know in particular, but I've heard that there's a couple of brothers out there that are worth, $500 million or so, be it athlete or in entertainment and everything, that have invested in creating a school in their communities. But the school goes by what? The regular American curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to learn real quick. Athletes are not going to do it.
No, they're not.
Not going to do it for us. And another thing that's not going to do it, as long as we keep thinking we're 13% of the population,
mm-hmm.
As long as we keep thinking whatever they put out, that's what we believe.
Yeah.
We don't ask ourselves, well, where do you go in the world and the indigenous people are the lowest population? Where in the world do you go and the indigenous people are the smallest group of people? The Negro hasn't even thought of that yet. What you call an African American, they don't even think of that. Whatever boss say, that's what we gonna do.
I mean, in referring to yourself as a minority, how can you, that too, how can you be 13% of the population, like you said, Carrie, and also a minority, but yet they rely on you for everything. They rely on you to buy the new product. They rely on you to eat the new food. They send the Popeyes chicken sandwich. They send it to black movie stars and athletes to try, so they push it. They know where to get their money from. When a foreigner comes from India, I'll use India as an example because a lot of people that are in the corner stores and stuff in the inner city areas are from Pakistan or India or Arabic of some sort. When they come here, we'll give you $10,000 if you open a business in this area of town. You'll make your money fast. Because they know, and like a dumb fuck, the person who owns the store who was initially black or indigenous, sells the store to this person because they see a large amount of money because I don't got to worry about this no more. And so then they start selling us rotten meat and foods and all that shit that we don't need. I mean, it's like, so what are we going to do? I mean, to take back our communities and our education, we have to stop believing we're not a minority at all. We're not a minority. Here in the United States, we're not a minority, and globally, we're not a minority. And we're not 13% of no population. We are the majority of the population. And they know that.
Correct.
That's why they look for our vote, and they go and want to test the shit wherever we're in high concentrations at, because that's a way of eliminating us and dwindling down our numbers.
Correct. I mean, and they contradicted themselves even on their rules when it comes to that. We already know we not the minority, but people believe when they actually call you the minority. When they said from the beginning that if you have one drop of our blood, that makes you one of us. So how could anybody be a minority right now? Y'all one of us. That's how we are. You know what I'm saying? So we've been through that. It's just the fact that that's how we still believe everything. We believe everything they say on it. We don't even check.
Not only do we believe it, not only do we believe it, we do it.
Mm-hmm. Continually.
And that's what I'm saying. Better get with this, this we stuff, because many Negroes, some think they're Greek, some think they're Hebrews, some think they're Christians, some are Muslims. We believe in all these ideologies, but we don't have an ideology that calls on our mothers and fathers. But you want to call those people smart. I'm not the one.
Right.
At all.
Well, so with that being said, we've had our discussion about it and stuff, and we pretty much went through the ADHD with the learning styles. We discussed the school to prison pipeline. Now let's come, hopefully this leaves some type of residual energy within you, so we can start coming together and figuring out ways to counteract this and change this, because we have a future. It's not, our future isn't just tomorrow. It's the year after and the year after that. What are we going to do to decrease the school to prison pipeline, as well as the attendance in prison and the failure of the children in the school system? What are we going to do to change this outcome and change the narrative? That's something that that I really think that we need to really look at and start really taking responsibility for changing, because what has been going on for the past 100 years has not worked for the indigenous American. It has not worked at all. So, I don't know if you guys want to, how you guys want to go about this, but it's something that we need to do. And I know there's a lot of people who have a lot of indigenous organizations. I know Carrie has a lot. I know that Rupert has a lot. I'm still coming new into all of this, but we need to figure something out, and we need to figure out something quickly. And we need to take responsibility for what has happened, so that we can learn from it and not repeat it going into the future. I really don't have a lot more to go into in regards to the school to prison pipeline, because we pretty much know. We know the situations. We know the harsher policies. We know that what's going on and how this is affecting the children. And you can see it in the detention centers every day. You see it. So these are the things that we have been faced with, and with them knowing that we don't learn the same way they do. This is how they use it to benefit them. That was the whole purpose of my ADHD presentation involving the learning styles, the prison to pipeline, and everything. You guys, I hope that I kind of met everybody's expectation there.
Very good.
Thank you.
Very.
And thank you. So we're going to conclude tonight on this. We have a lot more to go on this mental health thing, because it's not as far away as you think. A lot of our parents have mental health problems. Mm-hmm. See, all the Christians, they have mental health problems. All the people teaching their kids that some fat dude's about to come down their chimney, and they live in a desert and it don't snow there. You have people that put cotton on their roof to pretend like it's snow. This is the shit we teach our kids. And we want to blame other people.
Mm-hmm.
We can't on that.
We see it's stupid. Talking to an older cat today. So he just started working at Walmart. And he said, dude, if you see the people, the young folks, their worth ethics, it'll blow you away. So this is what I'm saying. I know there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. I'm not going to be the one that sit down and be like, oh, It's gonna be okay. Nah, I'm just gonna keep going on with the truth about stuff. Cause y'all, I know y'all seeing what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Many of us are now. A lot of people are. They're like, damn. They are trying to.
Mm-hmm.
Gentrification is everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Gentrification, and we just going around acting like everything is cool. Better wake your asses up. Better
Quick.
wake your asses up.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
So, Rupert, is any words you want to leave us with?
First and foremost, I want to thank you and Nicole for even having me on here to do this the first time. I think this is the way education should be. I see the people's comments letting you guys know this is the new wave. I take everybody to heed these words. This is just one subject matter that Nicole came up with, and you see how diverse and how much it is out there and how much information. Please, you guys, know that we speaking this out here in the most genuine fashion. I actually contacted them because I felt that the way they were trying to get this out here to you guys consistently, you know what I'm saying, and standing on everything they say, I knew that this is the people I would want to speak with. So I'm thanking you guys, and then I can't wait to see what else you guys are gonna touch on.
Well, thank you for joining us, brother, and thanks for giving us your input. Nicole?
Yeah, I have something. Christmas is coming, and I personally don't celebrate, but are you guys paying attention to the fact that you're going into a store to buy your Christmas gifts and you're wearing masks, and it's during a pandemic, and you're concerned about Christmas when you should be concerned about making sure you have food and the things that you need? Worrying about the holidays is not a construct that we should be worrying about right now. It doesn't make it is not logical. We're repeating ourselves and expecting different results. And I think that it's time that we wake up and realize, once again, like they have said, what's going on and what's being done to us, and start taking accountability and start making some changes with the narrative.
It's
That's all I got.
And so, so I'm gonna leave. My next broadcast is gonna be from Los Angeles. You guys,
All right.
it's bad out there. So I'm gonna hit you guys with a program from there to let you know how it's going out there. But listen, you guys be safe. It's gonna be a lot of people doing a whole bunch of crazy stuff, driving with masks on, not paying attention, drunk as usual, and doing this holiday stuff. Also, remember, this is the season where a lot of people are abducted and their organs are used for other people.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. That used to I was in when I was in school down there in West Texas, they was doing that down there in Lubbock, Texas, down there with the students partying. Yeah. Watch out. That's facts.
And that includes those blood donations that they have, where they set up and have you go and donate blood. That is the same thing. That's kind of your blood is considered to be an organ. You need it.
Yes.
So look at, donating blood in plasma, same shit, different name, same shit.
But cool, you guys. We'll chat next time.
Okay.